Welcome back. And if you've just joined us, welcome back to the mid-morning show this morning with myself, Nafisa Dango. And we're in conversation with many people to discuss relative topics that affect our lives on a daily basis. One of them is, of course, sleep deprivation and the types of situations we face due to anxiety, depression, and that's what affects our sleep patterns as well. And nobody better to tell us that than Mr. JD Uys. He's the founder of Arkell Sleep Health, a South African-based sleep health practice which specializes in the assessment, treatment, and monitoring of sleep illnesses. In association with Goodnight Baby, Arkell Sleep Health caters for the whole family from babies to adults. Arkell Sleep Health also gives sleep health training and fatigue management at corporate institutions and organizations, which I think is so pertinent at this point in time due to the COVID-19 scenario that people have faced and are now facing this particular issue. A very good morning to you, and thank you so much for joining me on the show this morning, Mr. Uys.
Good morning, Nafisa. You can call me JD.
All right, I'll do that.
Thank you.
JD, talk to us. As we know, we went through such a terrible pandemic. We, of course, haven't come to an end of that. Everybody's, I suppose, just learning to deal with the type of situation that they're in. And reading your resume and the types of things you've done, I think you're the most apt person to speak to with regard
Thank you.
to,
Thank you.
to sleep deprivation. I mean, people are suffering with serious mental health, issues at the moment. How the wellness is in us. Should we say we'll create a little pandemic on its own? Because if you look at the types of situations people are in, and the people that I speak to in many different spaces have the same issues. It's either they're suffering with anxiety or depression or sleep deprivation. And I think they all work hand in hand. I'm sure you'd agree with me.
Yes, we do.
So talk us through it. How do we let's first just deconstruct it and see, how do we know that we're suffering with these types of things? Sometimes some people just have a bad night and that's it.
Yeah, that's true. Insomnia is the largest sleep illness in the world, or sleeplessness. Pathologically speaking, it's the largest sleep illness in the world. And it is a big problem worldwide, not only in South Africa. To answer your question in terms of how do we know if we have a sleep problem or something like insomnia or any other sleep disease, we can mainly figure out how we wake up in the morning. If we are waking up tired and we want to carry on sleeping, but we can't for whatever reason, then we know we've got a sleeping problem. And what I mean by that is you get lots of people who sleep different hours a day. Now, clinically speaking, from an academic clinical point of view, literature says that we must sleep, or academic literature tells us that if we sleep less than 6 hours a night, that may cause some more comorbidities in the future, like depression, or physiological conditions like weight gain, heart problems, and so on. We need to understand that sleep forms the third pillar in our overall holistic health. We talk about our diet, which is obviously very important, and our exercise, which is very important. And the third pillar of our overall health is our sleep health, our sleep, how we sleep at night. So I hope I answered your question. Insomnia is a big problem, not only insomnia, but other diseases like sleep apnea or breathing disorders when we sleep at night. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, no. I think that has shed a little bit more light on the matter, that it's not just one particular aspect of it, but there's many reasons for having sleep illnesses, should we put it that way.
Yes.
A lot of people complain about one thing, and I've noticed this, especially now during COVID-19, is they say they sleep, but they don't sleep well. When they wake up in the morning, they feel as though they haven't slept.
Yes, that's true. Many people say that they are light sleepers, and there may be many reasons for that, and that may cause a problem. And again, when they wake up in the morning, then they are tired. It influences their productivity at work, their daily interaction with other people. It makes them more irritable and so on. And I recently wrote an article in LinkedIn about the
Mm-hmm.
impact of sleep deprivation in the workplace and the financial impact it has, not only with companies, but
Mm-hmm.
also in a macroeconomic sense with countries. Some sleep deprivation costs, for interest sake, cost the same for
Mm-hmm.
countries as their military budget per year. And I'm talking like
Sure.
countries like the UK and Canada. It's first world countries that sleep deprivation costs their economy, their gross domestic product value, the same as their military's budget. So it is a big problem and it needs to be taken care of. The good news is that people don't have to suffer from sleep illnesses. You know,
Mm.
it's there's hope out there with a variety of solutions.
Mm. It is a scary thought because, I mean, now that you brought up the subject of the fact that it costs as much as a military budget would cost,
Yeah,
I don't think people are taking it as seriously as that. And I'm glad that you brought that up so people can understand that what they're dealing with is a serious condition. It's not something to take lightly, it's something that
yeah,
needs to be dealt with. So
yeah.
let's start off with, I think a lot of the times also it's our diets that affect us in many directions. What sort of
Mhm,
a diet would you say? Because people have habits, like I think I
mm.
have a bad habit where at night I would I would sit at night and have a hot cup of tea before I go to bed, and then I go like, oh shucks, now I can't fall off to sleep. What is the issue?
Yeah,
But I think it's
yeah,
it's the caffeine that we're putting into our systems and not
yeah.
realizing that is having an impact on our sleep pattern.
Yeah, that's true. We need to maybe make a distinction here. We get mainly if we talk about sleep pathology. If I talk about
Mm,
sleep pathology, I'm talking about sleep diseases like insomnia and sleeplessness. But there's also the other part where people don't suffer from insomnia, but they just want to increase their sleep health, like they want to increase, or better their diet or better their exercise patterns. We get the same type of scenario. The problem with
mm,
insomnia is, and I'm specifically focusing on insomnia from a behavioral point of view,
mm,
simple solutions like reducing caffeine or make your room extra dark, or the other sleep, what we call sleep hygiene issues or sleep hygiene resources that we have, will
mhm.
not cure insomnia. Insomnia
Mhm.
is a pathological behavioral problem in most cases, and it won't be cured with normal hygiene, issues. That
Okay.
simply
So
won't help.
so how would people that find themselves in these types of situations deal
Mm,
with it? Would they have to come and
mm,
see you? Is it
mm,
something that can be dealt with in a certain way?
mm. So if we talk about simply improving your sleep health, I can give some advice a little later on, if you ask me. But if we
Sure.
talk about insomnia, to cure insomnia, let me first start off with a diagnosis. There's many sleep illnesses that present like insomnia, which is not insomnia. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about the circadian rhythm problems that we have, where people, their circadian rhythm, their biological clock wants them to go to bed later at night,
Mm.
as early as 2 o'clock in the morning. But
Sure.
life's precious wants us to wake up at a certain time in the morning for prayer or whatever the case may be and work.
Mm-hmm.
So to deal with it, and the proper way to deal with it is probably the safest way is to go talk to your general practitioner or the doctor who looks after you, and then they will then either decide if there is an indication for some sort of sleep medication if it's indicated,
Mm-hmm.
because we get different types of insomnia, and there's a very good place for sleep medications, what we call the Z drugs, like the zolpidems, the atcozolpidems, stilnoxicadian, and then the B drugs or the benzodiazepine drugs, the more stronger medication, which is Dominoct, Valium, Atarax, and stuff like that, which is dangerous, but there's a place for it. It needs to be monitored and managed correctly. Then your doctor will probably refer to you to someone like me, who will then look over your holistic sleep health and try to figure out what the problem is. We usually get that right. Okay. So to diagnose the problem, that's quite important, and then to treat that. So it is not necessary. It's the safest way is to go to your doctor, but clients can also phone someone like me, and we will direct them to the right place and solve the problem. In terms of insomnia related issues, the insomnia pathology,
Sure.
and
What would you tell overthinkers? Because there's a lot of people that
yeah,
overthink because their minds
yeah,
work overtime during the
yes,
course of the day. And then
absolutely,
you find they can't unwind at night and they're
yes,
still overthinking.
yes,
And when they climb in
mm,
bed, of course, as we
mm,
know, your mind and your body work hand in hand.
yes,
So your body is tired, but your mind's still working overtime. So how would you deal
yes.
with a situation like that?
So that's an important question because most insomnia sufferers, the main complaint is my brain is working, I can't switch it off. I can't switch off. And there's a couple of ideas or things that will work. Number one, and this is very important, the first rule of good sleep hygiene, I must just add this: I'm not giving
Mm,
a clinical
mm,
treatment now. This
mm.
is just for someone whose brain is overacting, who's got a busy
Yes.
brain. The first thing that you can do is allow your daily budget time that you have, allow time for worrying and switching off. um,
Mm,
what we find is, and this is a typical issue, is that people work, 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 work. They look after the kids, they make dinner, all the lights are switched on at home, and then all of a sudden it's 10 or 11 o'clock, and then they need to go to bed, and then they
mm,
expect their brain to quickly fall asleep. It can
mm,
work if you're extremely tired, but we need our brains to switch
mm,
off. And what I mean by that is allow worry time. Set a time out to do the thinking and the worrying and etc. Breathing exercises work a lot. Yoga works a lot. Relaxation exercises work well. But
mm,
also about an hour before the time that you want to go to bed, switch off all the lights, get rid of technology, and just be you. Okay,
mm,
just be
mm,
just relax and allow things to happen in terms of do the thinking outside of the bedroom. Okay.
mm.
So
And
and
the
then
cell phone. Let's say that I'm going to butt
yes,
in there,
yes,
JD, because
yeah,
a lot of
technology
people
off.
have the habit where they climb
Yeah,
into the bed and they think, well, this is my unwinding time, and they get onto
yeah,
Instagram and they're
yeah,
busy on social media and not
yes,
realizing that they're not giving themselves a
yes,
chance to actually
yes.
unwind.
What you also can do, you're absolutely right. And we've got a big problem with teenagers there. I was on ENCA News a couple of years ago where this exact problem in terms of screen time screen time with teenagers. I'm sorry, I said a broadcaster's name now. I apologize for doing
Yes,
that.
okay.
Um, but Nafisa, so remember the way our brain works, brains work when it gets to sleep is we need to allow our sleep hormones to be released. Okay,
Mm,
there's
mm,
if we talk about good sleep conditions, there's mainly two very important sleep hormones or neurotransmitters in our brain that
right.
causes sleep. The one is called adenosine,
Mm,
and that is literally a hormone that allows us to fall asleep. It won't keep us asleep, not necessarily. But the more active we are during the day and the more we are awake, the more adenosine is released in the brain, and that makes us tired. The
mm,
other
mm.
important hormone is called melatonin, and
Yes,
melatonin needs time to be released, and it gets released by mainly two that what we call zeitgebers or time givers. Okay,
right.
it clicks on with time. Sorry, with light, the time of the day when it's dark, that helps melatonin release, and also our body temperature that also helps with melatonin release. So that's why I say we call it a buffer zone. We need to
Mm.
employ a buffer zone before bedtime, about an hour before we want to go to sleep, and allow that melatonin release to, melatonin to release into our bloodstream and then into our brain. So it's important to switch off lights, and a hot bath or a hot shower before bed is also works also good to release or help with the release of melatonin.
And
If I
would you
answer,
say like maybe a calming drink like a chamomile tea or
yes,
something of that sort
yes,
would also
that
help just to calm you down, and get you into a better
yes,
frame of mind? Because as we
yes,
know, our mindset is what affects us in many directions, and this is what we're talking
exactly.
about. Because our mind wellness and our mind health has been affected in so many directions, and this is the reason we brought this up today. Is because as we speak to guests and as we speak to people when we go out of the studio, each
Mm,
one of them complains about how exhausted they are. And although
mm,
they had that sleep, it wasn't
mm.
that good quality of
Yes,
sleep.
yes, and that is true. There may be many reasons why they are tired, many medical reasons. For instance, diet issues.
Mm,
Iron plays a big role. The level of iron in your bloodstream, and then also obviously the sleep conditions. And
mm,
when you are tired, and it influences the productivity of your day, and it makes you more irritable. You can't concentrate enough, and you are physically tired. It's important to go to your doctor and talk
right.
about this. There may be many reasons for that, not only from a sleep health point of view. Mostly, it is um, we can link some sleeping problem to it, but it's not idiopathic. It may not be idiopathic in nature. In other words, it may not a sleeping problem may not be alone. In there may be other issues as well, and that's why I say it's important to talk to your doctor about this.
So,
If
JD, let me just butt in there. When we do come to you with a particular sleepness issue,
mm, mm,
you diagnose it. What sort of techniques do you use? Is there a particular
mm,
machine that a person goes on?
yes,
Are there electric waves that you could use to be able
yeah,
to come?
yeah,
I have to ask
okay,
these questions because
okay. No, it's
when you
cool.
when
It's
you
good.
think about sleep deprivation, the first thing that comes to mind is plugging your ears and putting in
Yeah,
maybe something soothing that'll probably
that's
help you to
it's
calm
a
down.
beautiful question, because sleep illnesses have different origins. So what we do is we first have a very good long clinical history session, a consultation session, where we ask specific question in terms of a sleep history and also a
Hmm.
medical history, and then we can decide what the next course of action will be. If there's some kind of a physiological sleeping problem, and there I'm talking about the sleep breathing issues, restless leg syndrome issues, periodic limb movement issues, and I'm just naming a few examples, then a polysomnogram or a sleep study may be indicated.
Okay.
Okay. So there they hook you up with a lots of wires, and they physically monitor you while you are asleep. And this machine will record the sleep data, and then we can make a diagnosis according to that. But if we talk about behavioral issues like insomnia,
Hmm.
for instance, it is we can't do a sleep study. A sleep study is not indicated, and that is based on very specific clinical questionnaires that we ask. For
Okay.
instance, the insomnia severity index, the GAD-7, which is an anxiety index form, or we call it the DBAB-16, which is another form that we use to diagnose because it's behavioral in nature, and we
Sure.
need we need to pinpoint it. We also use the insomnia severity, the Epworth sleepiness scale, to determine how tired people are, and those are all clinically proven resources that we have worldwide to diagnose behavioral issues in sleep.
Right.
So
What
yes, we can
message?
diagnose it. Mm. Yeah.
Which I'm actually relieved to hear that because it's giving our viewers some form of hope to say that there's help out there. Because sometimes what happens is the pill alone is not going to work. People take sleeping tablets and think, okay, that's going to work. But at times it does get rather addictive, and you want to
Yes.
take it all the time because you're so used to taking it and not
Yes. Yeah.
changing your brain pattern to be able
Yes.
to think differently, to say,
Yes.
okay, I'm going to learn to unwind and I'm going to
Mm.
change the way I'm doing things. So, what
Mm.
message would you like to leave our viewers with? What do you think is the most important thing they need to know?
Oh, you put me under pressure in terms of time because I can carry on about this. So the first thing that I want to get out there is, and we work with this every single day. It is totally possible to
Mm,
without learn to sleep without sleep medication. I'm
mm,
not talking about antidepressants or the SSRI drugs or other medication like blood pressure or cholesterol medication. I'm specifically talking about sleep medication.
all right.
You can learn to sleep without sleep medication because that's the way our brains work in most cases. There are very little, and I'm talking about brain injuries and other problems that may throw a spanner in the works. But in most cases, we all can learn to sleep without sleep medication. Good sleep health or is about the way we think about sleep. Okay. um, we don't think about getting hungry. We just fall hungry and we don't think about it. And the
Mm,
same with sleep. Sleep is supposed to be something that just happens. Many insomnia sufferers um, overthink their sleeping problem. And I don't blame them because it has got such a negative impact on their daily activities that they
mm,
can't. I
mm,
mean, it's an illness. I mean, if you've got an illness, you think about it. So my message to is to allow enough wind down time, get the room dark. This is not for insomnia sufferers. Insomnia sufferers need a bit more intervention, but to improve in terms where to switch off your brain, allow some worry time, allow allow your brain to switch off during the night. This is where prayer comes in. Prayer is very important. That wind down time, that breathing, that
mm,
aloneness, calm that gets over you, and prayer
mm,
works very well with that. um, so that's all good and well. And then in terms of uh, never spend time in bed rolling around and worrying. Don't lie in
mm,
bed and do your worrying outside of the bedroom. If you
mm.
can't sleep, get out of bed, get out of the bedroom, and go to another comfortable place where you can worry and think. You're not sleeping anyway.
That makes a lot of sense because the thing is, you're training your brain to understand that that is your sleeping space. That's your space where you go and unwind and you
Mm,
just leave everything behind.
mm,
And
mm,
I like that you brought up that idea because a lot of us have that habit to walk around in the room itself, and then
mm.
our brain is training itself to say, ah, it's fine.
Exactly.
We're not going to unwind there. So
Mm,
I think you've given us some really valuable information. I really
mm,
appreciate the fact that you've taken the time out to give us this valuable advice that I thought many of our viewers need to actually tap into and deal with. And I'm hoping they get in touch with you or anybody else that can help them with this particular issues that they're facing. And,
mm.
as we know, the first thing that they need to deal with is the anxiety and the depression, and then deal with the sleep issues after that. And I think you'll agree
Yes.
with me that there's a
Mm,
pattern to follow, is having to still first deal with the anxiety, because if the anxiety is there, then of course the sleep patterns are affected. And it's once we've lowered our anxiety levels, we can then decide which pattern works for us best and what is it that we need to do. Because as you were saying, each individual has their own way and their own sleep patterns and their own
mm.
issues to deal with. So thank you
Yeah.
so much, JD, for joining us. I wish we could
Pleasure.
talk longer. I'm hoping we
Yeah,
can
me
tap into
too.
each other real soon. That was really some insightful thought for ourselves. So thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Do take care, and we
You
wish
too.
you a wonderful week going forward.
Thank you. You too, Nafisa. See you
Thank you.
later.
Take care. Bye bye. That was JDS from Arkle Health, and talking about, of course, something that I think affects us in many directions, and we don't get to realize the importance and of our sleep. It also affects our mental wellness, and it's something that we need to look at to be able to, of course, have a better quality of life. As you were saying, how it affects us in the work environment, and we're not realizing the seriousness of it. So, what I'm saying is, go out there, enjoy a nice cup of chamomile tea maybe this evening, and try to unwind and have some really good sleep. We're going to go for a quick break. We'll be back with you in a sec.